Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the room, take a breath, drop the weight. You've been carrying the world like it never learned your name. I know the smile on the outside, the storm you keep hid, the bills, the grief, the pressure, all the things you never said. But listen, I've seen warriors build from a broken day, turn a scar into a map and a hard no into a way. From the barracks to the boardroom, from the block to the base. If you still got a pulse, baby, you still got a place. This is the reset, reset, reset. Shake the dust off your chest, let it all get checked. You don't need permission to rise from the wreck. One deep breath, one step. That's the reset, 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 reset. When the mind gets loud, we bring the truth back in effect. You are not your worst day, you the bounce back flex. Stand tall, come alive. That's the reset. Yeah. Yeah. Talk to the sleepless, the tired, the I'm fine crowd. The nurses, the truckers, the moms, the soldiers holding ground. The vets with the silence, the kids trying to be men. The women with 100 jobs and nobody checking in. You can heal in the dark, you can start where you stand. A journal, a prayer, a call, a clean slate in your hands. Don't let shame run the tape, don't let fear get the wheel. You were built for the rebuild, you were made to get real. So breathe in, breathe out, let the old story fall. You can break, you can bend, but you still answer the call. From the hurt to the hope, from the loss to the light. We don't quit in the morning, we reset and we fight. This is the reset, reset, reset. Shake the dust off your chest, let it all get checked. You don't need permission to rise from the wreck. One deep breath, one step. This the reset, 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 reset. When the mind gets loud, we bring the truth back in effect. You are not your worst day, you the bounce back flex. Stand tall, come alive. That's the reset. For the ones still standing, for the ones still growing, for the hearts that got heavy but kept on going. Dr. J on the mic and the message is set. Heal loud, rise proud. That's the reset. Yeah. That's the reset. Yeah. That's the reset. Yeah. That's the reset. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reset. Something that we do every Sunday at 12. This is where we take those W.T.F moments and we turn them into breakthroughs. I'm Dr. Ariel Jordan, Army veteran, therapist. And a quick note before we get into it. Man, this week has been something else. So I still wanted to show up. But my dog is being hospitalized in the ER. And, he's in good hands. And honestly, there's nothing more that I could do for him at home. Sitting there staring at my phone or researching and scaring myself even more. So rather be here, so bear with me today. We're going to get into some stuff. First of all, happy Father's Day. I want to talk to the men today, but stick around, even if that's not you, because there's something here for you too. But I noticed something and I want to share it with you all because, as you know, if you've been here before, I love research. I don't think anybody should take people's words. I think we should look it up. I think we should have evidence behind what are we even talking about right now, So I love research and I want to be able to share that with you all. Also, hold on, let me make sure that my mic is live. If y'all can hear me out there, drop me a comment. Say, hey, tell me where you're tuning in from. Okay, it looks like I'm good to go. I just have that nervousness because of doing, I think it was a school assignment, but I did the school assignment and then I realized that the mic wasn't on and I was 30 minutes in. So that's always in the back of my mind. When I'm doing a show, I'm like, let me just double check and make sure the little volume is moving. So, yeah. So anyways, I want to get into a little bit about like something that I keep noticing, and it turns out there's actual research behind it. And so it's not just my opinion. So I put this together. A lot of men got handed an unwritten rule book for how to be a man, how to be a dad, how to show up. And nobody sat down and wrote it out. So it got passed down through example, through what got praised, and also what got shut down. So today I want to pull out that unwritten rule book. I want to bring it out into the open so that we can have a discussion. So where it came from, what is actually costing you, and according to research, what might be worth keeping versus updating. So this is for the dads, for the guys still figuring it out, what kind of, man they want to be. And for the women listening, stick around because you might walk away understanding some of the men in your life a little bit differently. So, so drop in the chat where you're tuning in from, just so I can know who all is here. I like knowing who's in the room. That it makes me happy to see where everybody comes from. And it's so beautiful that this channel, reaches so many individuals from all over. So say hey. I will say hey back. Even if you're catching the replay, drop a comment because I do go back later and try to respond to everybody. So, quick reminder, I always gotta do my disclaimer. I am a therapist, but I am not your therapist. So this is meant to be a conversation, not treatment. I am a research nerd, so you're gonna get that anyway. If you're in a crisis though, I need you to call or text 988. Non-negotiable. If you need somebody to be there for you, they will be there for you. If you are a military community, and you're calling in 988 plus 1, that is for people who are trained in military culture. So use that resource if you need it. Tell your friends about it if they need it, because one of the things we want to do, and actually I got my shirt on today, fight the stigma. So that's one of the things that, we want to keep doing forever. It's PTSD Awareness Month. We have all these different, I can't keep up with the awareness months. I don't know about y'all, but I try to like skim over what might be like mental health related, and I'll try to like pick at that one a little bit. But they have all these awareness months because we want to raise awareness. We want people to get the help that they need, or at least know that, they have the resource, and or because your friend told you they're going through something, and you're gonna provide them with the resource. So it's a ripple effect. We got each other's back. So that's what we're talking about today. So I want to get into the rule book. Okay, so the rule book and the research behind it. So let's talk about what is actually in this rule book that a lot of guys got handed. Be the provider, full stop. That's it. Just be the provider. That's what you're here for. Don't cry in front of people, especially your kids. Handle it yourself. Anything other than anger reads as weak. If you're struggling, that is something you sort out on your own time. Does that sound familiar to anybody? And if it does, you're not alone. You are not alone. There are a lot of people that got these messages, a lot of men that got these messages. So here's the thing though. There is actual psychology research behind this. And I was just fascinated to learn because I was curious. I see men and women in my private practice. And what I notice is that the theme sometimes comes up. I'll notice the same things that are very similar because we're all different. So I take each individual as they come, but I try to learn like what the trends are so I can best help that person, what people identify as, what problems they're struggling with. It's not a one size fits all thing ever. But then I get curious about it later because I really want to best help that person. I'm like, okay, so what else can I be doing? Or what else do I need to know? And that's where my research brain kicks in. So it's been studied since the 90s, and there's a name for it. It is called the gender role strain paradigm. And you can check me, you can look this up because I already did, because I wanted to share that with you all today. So basically, it looks at what's happening when guys absorb all this toughness, all this stoicism, keeping it all together messaging. And what tends to happen is something that researchers call restrictive emotionality. Restrictive emotionality. Stay with me here. The American Psychological Association put out their first ever guidelines, especially for working with men and boys. So 40 years of research went into these guidelines. And what it shows is that boys that get that don't cry message really early, they figure out fast which emotions get a good reaction and which ones don't. And a lot of them just stop showing the ones that don't land. Well, they don't land well. The emotion doesn't disappear though, and it just stops coming out where everybody can see it. So there's a detail in that research that I think about a lot. One psychologist who studied this for decades talks about how anger usually isn't the real emotion. I don't know if y'all have ever seen on the internet the anger iceberg, or if you haven't, you can always Google it. But it's like an iceberg. And so, the saying, we only see the tip of the iceberg. So if you could think about that, like tip of the iceberg, and then the water, and then underneath is a bunch of the iceberg. It's huge, gigantic, right? More than the eyes can see. So usually anger's at the tip, but it's like so much underneath: frustration, sadness, depression, you name it, like all the things are underneath, but you're seeing anger because that's what shows up, and so that usually isn't the real emotion. It's the one that is acceptable. It's often covering something underneath it: sadness, shame, all those other things I just mentioned. So boys get trained early to shut most things down except for anger. So anger ends up being the one door that stays open. And this tracks what we see sometimes. A guy, can talk his ear off about how frustrated he is, and then 10 minutes, easy, no problem, putting that into words. But what's actually underneath that frustration is like, when we ask that question, like what's underneath of that, it is really hard. It's like searching for a word in a language they were never really taught. And that feeling, the feeling is probably in there somewhere, but it just never got a name that they were allowed to use. And so let me give you an example. I worked with a guy a while back, and every session for weeks, the word always came out: frustration. Frustration with the job, frustration with the marriage, frustration with the kids. And one day I just asked him, frustrated or hurt? And he was quiet and thought about it for a minute. And then he said, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. And I'm like, yeah, I want to know, like, when you think about it, right? It wasn't because he didn't have access to the feeling. It's because nobody ever offered him that word before. And so I'm curious, as women, like, you can answer this about like the men in your life too, but what is one rule from the rule book that you got handed? And you can absolutely drop that in the chat, because again, I am not a man, obviously, but I learn from men, and we learn from each other. We're different. So I I started to research this. So this is research and lived experience from some men that I've talked to. So of course, not one size fits all. This is by no means, me trying to put anybody in a box. But I found the research interesting, and I found that it's worth to share, because we need to question that. Like, what is a rule that I got handed? I thought this, but maybe it needs updating. Who knows? Let's just look at it, right? So I don't want to turn this into a men are doing it wrong conversation. That's not where I'm going. So the rule book came from somewhere. So a lot of it made sense at some point. And honestly, it usually gets handed down generation to generation. Your dad got his version from his dad, and his dad got it from a time, when staying hard genuinely kept things together. Resources were tight. There wasn't room for falling apart. Ain't nobody got time for that, right? So I want to get specific about military culture here, because the research is pretty direct about this one. So studies on military identity show training is built to promote toughness, stoicism, self-reliance. That's the point. It's there to prepare people for combat, to build a trust within a unit. And in that environment, it works. It works. That's why we do it. But here's where it gets complicated. One study pulled together 17 different research papers and looked at over 3,500 veterans, and found that the more strictly someone held onto the traditional masculine norms, the more severe PTSD symptoms tended to be. And it's held true across both men and women veterans. So I thought that was fascinating. So they looked at literally 3,500 veterans, and that's what they put together. If they held true to those traditional masculine norms, the more severe their PTSD symptoms were. So let's put that together. That's the part that really gets me. The two best researched, most effective treatments for PTSD required actually talking through what happened. So the emotions, the thoughts, the details, right? So the same training that helps someone hold it together in the field can end up working against them when it's time to heal at home. Researchers found that pride and self-reliance and the beliefs that you should handle it on your own kept a lot of service members from reaching out for help. That sound familiar to anybody? Even when they really needed it. And that's why I make it a point every time to start my show with that disclaimer of like, I'm not your therapist, but also there's help out there for you. And I've even had people like ask me, I don't even know the first step. Where do I start? I'm gonna help them every time, right? Because I think there's something in that to where we've learned to not do that. There's also research connecting where the norms, like we're staying with these norms here with a higher rate of self-harming behaviors among veterans, and emotional control specifically showed up as one of the strongest predictors of it. So it's not just like about anybody being broken or anything like that, but that's what happens when the only instruction is handle it internally, and internally runs out of room. Whoa, what are we gonna do now? If you keep everything internal and then you run out of space in there, guess what's gonna happen? Like, it's gotta go somewhere. And usually it's not in a place that is healthy unless we know like what to do with it, and that's the point of these conversations too, is when we know better, we do better, like the great Maya Angelou said. But the thing is, we need to have a lot of tools in our toolbox. All of us do. We need to have a lot of tools in our toolbox, because that way when something happens, we're like, oh, okay, well, I'm identifying what I feel. I need to go do something about it. Maybe I'll take a walk, whatever. So that's the point of these conversations, is so that you have tools in your toolbox. I think about my own time in the service, and you get trained to compartmentalize. I mean, you have to, right? Honestly, to function in that environment, the skill keeps you operational. But nobody hands you the other half of the training, the part where you learn how to open that compartment back up once you're home and you're safe. And so I talk with a lot of people about this, and they can relate. And we say, if you have a container or if you have a place to put something, do you go back to it? And a lot of people are like, no, I just put it there because I don't want to deal with it, or I'll put it there because it's too hard, or I'll put it there because if I deal with it, or if I start crying, I might not stop, or something like that, which is not true. None of us have ever started crying and then like never stopped. We might have cried a lot depending on what's happening, but nobody has started crying and like never stopped. That's not a thing. Like, that's not how our bodies and our minds and our emotions work. So, but most people, like, they have some sort of a fear that keeps them from going there. And I think it comes from the compartmentalization that we experience. It's like we put things away in the service because we don't have time. We got to keep it going. The mission's got to be complete. We got to get this done by this time and whatever else is happening. And so we learn to put that away for now. But if we don't go back to it, though, it's going to show up somewhere in our lives. And it may show up in a time when we don't want it to show up. So that's the point of, like, we need to go back and open that compartment back up when we feel safe enough to do so. So, or get into the habit of just, doing it more regularly. But that stuff is going to show up somewhere. The stuff that you bury only gets heavier. And I said that in my TEDx talk. I was talking about grief. And I meant it. The stuff that you bury, it only gets heavier. The stuff that you sweep under the rug, guess what? You're going to trip over it eventually. Maybe not right away. It creates a little bit of short-term relief, but you're creating long-term discomfort. So here's how I want you to hear this. The rule book isn't like a personal failing or anything like that. It got built by real institutions, parents, military culture, society at large, and for a stretch of time in a specific context, it worked. The problem is that rule book doesn't always, the context has changed. So the rule book doesn't know that. You might be out of that environment now. For my folks who have transitioned out, maybe you're home, maybe you're raising a kid, you're actually trying to be present, with somebody that you love. And the old program is still running like nothing is different. That's how we know it needs an update. For people who experienced combat, or they experienced like long-term training, or just anything to where like your life is interrupted and you have to be a certain way in that environment, and then you change environments, it's time to update. It's time to update. Maybe we need to update multiple times, right? We allow space for that. When we know better, we do better. So what are you needing to update as you're thinking about it? You have to think about it because we're talking about it. But what is outdated? What old beliefs do we need to throw out? And what new beliefs do we need to bring in or tweak a little bit? So let's get practical. What's worth keeping? What's worth updating? Here's how you actually work with this. So the first thing you're going to do is pull apart the value from the rule. A lot of these rules are just a good value wearing a rule that's way too tight. So take never ask for help. Let's think about that one. Never ask for help. Underneath that is probably something like self-reliance, capability, not wanting to be a burden. Those are solid things to value. But the rule version of it, zero help ever, under any circumstance, that's the part that research is keeps connecting to the worst mental health and the delayed treatment. So think about it. Let's put that all together. If I never ask for help, zero, never, under any circumstance, that's a problem. It's not possible either, but it's a problem, so if we're thinking that way. I mean, if it doesn't cause you problems, let me know. Maybe we should do some research on you, right? But for most people, right, like that's part of the research that connects the worst mental health and the delayed treatment is because I can't ask for it. I don't want to be a burden. I'm capable. I'm going to rely on myself. So maybe an updated version would sound more like I value being capable and I can still ask for help when it makes sense. And that doesn't cancel out the value. Hear the difference? So the same goes for don't show emotion. Don't show emotion. The value underneath is probably wanting to stay steady for the people counting on you. We can relate. Good value. But zero emotional expression ever? That's costing you the connection with those same people. So think about that. Don't show emotion ever is a good value. We ain't got to throw it out. But zero emotional expression ever, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you connection. And that's what we don't want. So we need to update it. Oh, okay. So I can find, where that's appropriate. And the second thing, notice what is actually costing. No guilt trip. It's just information. It is data. Research links restrictive emotionality to depression, anxiety, and for a lot of veterans, more severe PTSD and a slower recovery. That's it. There's a pattern here. And it's been documented over and over. So seeing those actual costs tends to do more than somebody telling you just open up, So here's something worth thinking about. If you're a dad, let's bring it back to Father's Day. Kids watch. They don't learn from the rule book. They don't learn the rule book from a lecture. They learn it from watching what dad actually does. So if the rule, the running rule in your house is we don't talk about hard things. Okay. Your kid is picking that up, whether you teach it or not. And that's not me trying to make anybody feel bad about it. It's just information worth having. Okay. So we talked about the first thing being to pull apart the value from the rule, right? Because we want to have some cognitive flexibility here, right? We need to change some things. We need to update some things. What's worth keeping? What's worth updating? So we're going to pull apart the value from the rule. And then we're going to notice what it's actually costing. Not a guilt trip, just information. And then the third thing that we're going to do is practice the update in small doses, little doses. Nobody goes from lockdown to fully open overnight. It's just not possible. Please don't even try to do that. Trying to force that actually usually backfires. So don't do that. The research actually points to something useful here. Approaches work better when they're framed in a way that feels familiar to people like raised on military or traditional masculine norms. The language matters. The metaphor matters. When it's done right, veterans show up as capable of real emotional connection and the mutual support, just as anybody else. So the capacity's there. It just needs the right entry point. So you start small. You tell one person one true thing about how you're actually doing, not just what's frustrating you. So you ask for help with one small thing and you just see what happens. I started off today like, hey, I'm here, because I want to be here, but also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about my dog. I don't know about y'all, if there's any dog lovers out there. I know on a show a couple weeks ago, we had people posting pictures of their dogs and stuff in the comments, which was really cute. But we love our dogs. So that hurt my heart yesterday, just to, have to leave him there. But at the same time, I don't mind sharing that with you. I don't just share every little thing, but just know I'm not 100%, And I think that's what's important, right? And I do try to practice what I preach. I don't ever try to tell people a bunch of stuff and then I'm not going to do it. That doesn't make any sense. And also, I would not be okay. I'm a trauma therapist. I hear trauma all throughout my week and I help people, and so it's really important for me to do my own work and not just when I feel like it every single day. And I do my best. No perfection over here, but I definitely try. And so that's all I ask for, when I do these type of shows. I find something that I think is important and bring the research because I do think it's important. You don't know me, maybe some of y'all do, but most of you don't know me to a close level. I don't expect you to believe what I say. But if I bring you research, then maybe, we can have this conversation. We can sit and talk about it and then find ourselves being better human beings. That's my hope. So you start small. So here's a script if you need one. Instead of I'm fine, try. Honestly, today has been a lot. That's it. 5 words. You don't have to write a memoir. You just have to crack the door. Okay? So something so small can make a big difference as far as connection. Human connection. How many I'm fines do we have, And sometimes that's necessary. But honestly, today's been a lot. We can understand that. I work a lot with leaderships and companies, and that's a question that comes up a lot. Is like, if something terrible has happened at work, like a death or something like that, they're like, how do I show up? And I'm like, as a human, you show up as a human. You don't have to say, oh my gosh, last night I didn't sleep, and whatever, all the things that we can verbally, vomit. You don't have to do all of that. But we connect more with the human version of you. So if you say, honestly, today has been a lot, and that's all you say, it's completely fine. But if you act like everything is fine, people are going to see right through that. They're going to be like, fine, okay, but you over here snapping at people. How you fine? Or you over here, doing whatever behaviors out of the norm. People notice that. So think about that, all the I'm fine people. Sometimes we are fine. Sometimes we got to be fine, whatever. But, maybe if you're a leader and like your employees say you are right and something devastating just happened at work and they it's completely fine and understandable for you to not be all right. Yeah, I'm just, today's honestly been a lot. And that's it. We can connect. Oh, really? It's been a lot for me too. Whew. Not alone. Something simple like that. So think about it. What works for you? But if you need a script, try mine. Whatever works. You just have to crack the door. Remember that. So, gonna go back. Pull apart the value from the rule. Notice what it's actually costing. Not a guilt trip. Just information. Practice the update in small doses. Use the script if you need to. And for my women listening, this part is for you. If there is a man in your life running a tight version of this rule book, there is something worth knowing. When he goes quiet or turns everything into logistics instead of feelings, that's usually the training talking. It's probably not about how he feels about you. Cannot fix that for him. That is not really your job anyway. But you can make room for the small moments. When he says something real, even if it comes out clumsy, that's not a time to push for more. Let it land. That's usually what helps the new pattern stick instead of it getting buried again. Can you imagine if somebody who doesn't normally express, but they try to crack that door, and they say, today has honestly been tough for me, and you make it difficult for them, they're probably not going to tell you that again. Or it'll be a while. So just make sure that we're being mindful of those kind of things and how we treat each other. All right. So I framed it like this because it's Father's Day. So I definitely wanted to, really touch on those aspects. But I find that it's really important. And then I found the research behind it. So I was like, ooh, okay, let's get into that today. So your challenge is your move for the week. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. Whether you're carrying the rule book or you love someone that is, you're just going to pick something, just one thing to work on. What is the value underneath of it? What is it costing you? What is one small way that you could practice an updated version? Look at that. Tell one person one true thing. Use the 5-word script if you need it. Ask for help, even with something small. Sit with a feeling instead of turning it into frustration right away. Try that. It might be difficult, but try it anyway. And if you're a dad, here's an extra one, especially for you today. Tell your kid one true thing about yourself this week. Not a lecture, not a lesson, just something real. That's how the rule book starts getting rewritten for the next generation. We're breaking generational trauma over here, okay? That's it. That's the whole thing. Nobody handed you a written manual. Most of it got built out of what you watched growing up or what got reinforced along the way. And the research backs up that it can cost you more than you realize. It also backs up that it's not permanent. We know about neuroplasticity, that new neural pathways are forming all the time. People update this stuff all the time with the right support and the right approach. So if this is home for you or somebody that you know, everything I do is at bio.arielinjordan.com. I'll give y'all a dog update next week, hopefully a good one. Happy Father's Day to the men out there doing the work, written manual or not. Resilience is not optional. It is the mission. I'm Dr. J, and you got this. This is the reset with Dr. J, where we turn those W.T.F moments into breakthroughs. Have a good day, y'all.
Yeah. Welcome to the room, take a breath, drop the weight. You've been carrying the world like you never learned your name. I know the smile on the outside, the storm you keep hid, the bills, the grief, the pressure, all the things you never said. But listen, I've seen warriors build from a broken day, turn a scar into a map and a hard no into a way. From the barracks to the boardroom, from the block to the base. If you still got a pulse, baby, you still got a place. This is the reset, reset, reset. Shake the dust off your chest, let it all get checked. to the sleepless, the tired, the I'm fine crowd. The nurses, the truckers, the moms, the soldiers holding ground. The vets with the silence, the kids trying to be men. The women with 100 jobs and nobody checking in. You can heal in the dark, you can start where you stand. A journal, a prayer, a call, a clean slate in your hands. Don't let shame run the tape, don't let fear get the wheel. You were built for the rebuild, you were made to get real. So breathe in, breathe out, let the old story fall. You can break, you can bend, but you still answer the call. From the hurt to the hope, from the loss to the light. We don't quit in the morning, we reset and we fight. This is the reset, reset, reset. Shake the dust off your chest, let it all get checked. You don't need permission to rise from the wreck. One deep breath, one step. This the reset, the reset, reset, reset. When the mind gets loud, we bring the truth back in effect. You are not your worst day, you the bounce back flex. Stand tall, come alive. That's the reset. For the ones still standing, for the ones still growing, for the hearts that got heavy but kept on going. Dr. J on the mic, and the message is set. Heal loud, rise proud. That's the reset.